Good afternoon and Happy New Year, everyone. We at Scinomix would like to welcome you to the first webinar of 2025, where we are going to talk about unlocking some innovation. We are going to show some new functionality to our current VXL systems. There we go. I'm Mark Harris. I've been with Scinomix for a little over 7 years now. I take care mostly of the Northeast U.S. territory. And sitting next to me is Jason Lindsey, and you can introduce yourself.
Jason Lindsey. I am a West Coast account manager. I've been here for 17 years and seen a lot of innovation on this, and it's nice to have us do a couple more interesting things, help out all of our users for some requests and things that they've done. So looking forward to going to the webinar here with you, Mark.
Good. So a little housekeeping at first. We're going to go over the agenda, and then we'll go from there. We are working on showing current equipment functionality and the latest advancements that we have. A little backstory on the VXL system. The VXL was designed, I think the first one went out in 2011 or 2012, and all it was a tube and vial labeler. That's all it would do. It would pick up a tube, put it down into the roller, apply a label, and put it back. But over the course of the last 12 or 13 years, we've continued to add more and more functionality. We have two different types of bulk feeding, the ability to rearray tubes once they are labeled. We have filling via a peristaltic pump that came a while ago. We've included a universal gripper, which prevents the need for the users to have to manually change out gripper fingers in between different tube diameters. And we've had barcode scanning, either from looking up a factory barcode or for validating that the barcode can be read on the side of the tube. And we've kept adding that functionality, but within the last 2 years, we've also added our AQ aliquoting system. So we went full bore on liquid handling, and now we can actually aliquot. And what came with the aliquoting system was also the ability to have weight verification. So we have a scale that we can add, which allows you to get a tare weight and then a final weight of your fill volumes. But we have added even more functionality within the last year, and that's sort of surrounding the customer requirements or the voice of the customer over the last year. There have been a lot of questions and conversations from our customers about the traceability, flexibility, scalability, and how to limit inefficiencies. So when we're talking about traceability, what we're focusing on was the ability to track every step in the process from when we first pick up the tube and read the barcode on the bottom, all the way through all the processes until we validated the tube and put it into the rack wherever we want it. People want to have that traceability in one run. And when we talk about flexibility, we want to help the customer adjust to different labware needs. So without having to change out or order different equipment, when labware needs change, we want to be able to provide the solution that the customer currently has with Scinomix, but be able to add to that with different labware. And that stemmed sort of twofold. One, we have production facilities that gain different customers that have different tube or vial types that they would prefer to receive. But it also came back from, and we all remember the pandemic and the plastic shortages that we had. People couldn't find the tubes that they wanted, so they had to scramble to
Find their different tubes.
find whatever they could.
Mm-hmm.
And so customers have told us that they want to continually rely on that flexibility of different labware. So even outside of labware, customers were asking about scalability. So instead of adjusting to different labware, they wanted to adjust to improved throughputs or greater throughput demands that they have within the lab. What they don't want to do is start from scratch and order new equipment, different equipment that they're not used to.
Mm-hmm.
So they want to work on that ability to scale from what they already have. And then the last thing they wanted to talk about was to limit inefficiencies, and that's the downtime of the equipment. We focused on the downtime as it relates to changeover times between tubes, between processes, between runs. So what we're going to talk about today with the live demonstration and the question and answer period is how we've been able to combine all those different run types into one run rather than having to have multiple different output files of different runs that the user would then have to combine for one final file.
Yep.
And that's where we are today. We're going to highlight 3 functionality additions that we've had within the last year and a half. The first 2 will actually be part of the live demo. And the third one is just something that we want to mention to our current customers, the functionality that we have. So we are going to show you within a single run how Scinomix equipment can now handle multiple different tube types, different racks with different tube heights, different tube diameters within the same run.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it requires a universal gripper because
Yep.
of the need to have the different diameter tubes gripped without having to change the gripper fingers.
Yeah. Before with the pneumatic, yeah, you would have to change between diameter tubes. So with our universal gripper now, you can teach the open and close position for all those different diameters, and it's stored in the software.
The second thing we're going to show you is dual barcode scanning. So like I said before, we had the ability to look at the bottom of a tube and grab the factory barcode, or you had the ability to validate that the barcode was applied onto the label and that it's readable. We have many more customers that were asking to perform both of those functions within the same run, rather than having 2 different runs, one for the lookup and then one for the validation. We've changed it so that there's no adjustment that you have to make to the hardware. Everything is available within the software to do that dual scanning within the same run. And then the functionality that we're not going to show, that's not on this VXL system, that we want to expose to more people, is that weight validation that we talked about. As more customers are using our equipment for filling, not just labeling, people wanted to validate that the fill was there, and again, put it all the outputs within one file. So we have the weighing module that people are using that helps them to perform those tasks. If we have questions from the audience about this functionality before we go to the live demo, I just want to remind everybody that there is a question and answer functionality that's within your meeting right there, and Jason's going to monitor the questions as they come. So when the question and answer period comes up, we'll have some frequently asked questions, and then we'll have those live questions that we'll be able to answer for you.
Yeah. So please, whoever, if you have additional questions, something pops up, just type them in and we will skew through those questions and answers towards the end.
Good. So I think now we will move directly over to the live demo. We're going to change a couple of the screens. I'm going to stop sharing. And then Nick is going to take over. Good. So now you see 2 different camera angles of the VXL system. The angle on the left shows the front of the machine. And what you see are 2 different tube types on the top. We call it the deck. The first tube type is a micronic tube, so those smaller 96 well tubes. And then the second tube type is one of the Scinomix tubes that we have, which is a 0.5 mil externally threaded cryo vial. On the right side of the screen is where all the action is going to take place. So you're going to see where the machine picks up the tube. It's going to read the barcode on the factory barcode on the bottom. we'll put the tube in what we call the roller, where it applies the label, and then it validates as the label's spitting to be applied. And then it's going to pick the tube back up and put it back into the rack. Go ahead. So we're running about 3 tubes from each side of each type so that you can see. I'll let it get through this one. Talk about that. So it's picking up the tube. It's reading the bottom right now. Found it, so it puts it into the roller, applies the label, and it spins. It found the barcode, so it moves on to the next tube. Up, read the bottom, apply the label, verify that the barcode can be read, and it puts it away. Moving on to the next tube. This is the cryo vial. Read, apply the label, and validate. You see sometimes it slows down to try to get that validation. It found it, and it moves on to the next tube. So this is all seamless. You set it up once within the software under a run by telling it what tube types, what the rack looks like, the information you want on the label. And then once it's set that one time, the user would just come into the lab, set up the deck with the tubes that they want, and then press go. And that's what it looks like when I run through and I'm talking you through it. I think we're going to have Jason keep me a little bit more silent, and he'll run another few tubes so you can just see it in action. I know a lot of times it looks exceptionally fast, especially if you haven't seen it before. So he's going to run a few more tubes, and I'll just let the magic take place without the use of my voice. And as it works on the last tube, I want to remind everybody that if you have any questions that you would like us to answer during the Q&A period, you can go ahead and type your questions in, and then Jason will have that list of questions that you're able to ask. And magic. So that was just a really quick demo of what it looks like to add that functionality with the dual barcode scanning and the multiple tubes within the same run. I'm going to go back to sharing the presentation, and then we'll go from there. Before we get to the Q&A part of the session, I think it's important to let people know, either to remind people or to expose them to the fact that Scinomix sells consumables. We've been selling labels for 10 years plus, but within the last year and a half, we've actually added test tubes, cryo freezer racks, and then actually tubes can be capped or uncapped, sterile or non-sterile. We have a wide variety of tubes that we sell, from a 0.5 mil cryo vial up to, I think it's a 4.8 mil internally threaded cryo vial. But we also have 15 mil conicals that we sell. The advantage that people have seen from purchasing tubes from Scinomix is really twofold. One is they really like the one-stop shop. We're already listed as a vendor with the current customers. They know that they can order through us, and the trust that they've gained with purchasing equipment carries over. But two, and this also stems from that tube shortage and scarcity that we saw with individuals. When we collect orders from our customers, get an estimate of how many tubes they plan on using for a year, and we will take on the risk of warehousing and storing those tubes for you to guarantee that you will have those tubes available when you're ordering that next batch. So that helps to mitigate the concern that people have with a tube scarcity and having someone else tell them that they don't have the tubes that they need. All of our tubes are manufactured in the US, and they've been qualified with our equipment. The freezer rack's the same thing. There are a lot of people that use freezer boxes that are not automation friendly. So now we sell automation friendly freezer racks to help people out. And then, we have tubes in a variety of sizes and shapes and configurations.
And along those lines with those cryo racks, we want to mention too that we can use those on the system, so we can create an adapter plate on the deck, and you can actually place those boxes on the deck to be able to use in your runs.
Perfect. All right, let's go to the question and answer period. We'll start with the frequently asked questions, and these are questions that Jason and I have heard over multiple phone calls, over multiple virtual demonstrations, that a lot of customers are asking. So we're just going to put those in front of you first, and then we'll get to the other questions.
All right. Start with question one here. What types of tubes can the VXL handle?
So the tubes that the VXL can handle are from the 96 well, like 0.5 mil skinny tubes, all the way up to a 50 mil conical. So what we like to use as an example it's the 8 millimeter diameter minimum up to a 30 millimeter diameter maximum. And if it's round and within those specifications, it is highly likely that we can handle those tubes. If you have any questions about your tube types and whether or not Scinomix can handle them, feel free to reach out to the account manager if you know them, or to sales@scinomix.com.
Very good. How does the VXL integrate with laboratory information management systems, also known as LIMS?
Good. There are two different ways. The way that we've been able to handle it for many years is the LIMS system. You would create what we call a work list, and it's a comma separated file. So any CSV, we were able to read, and then it tells the system what information to print, put on the label, and then what to do with the tubes and vials. But we've added functionality within the last year, and it's called our interactive run lookup. So there were some individuals that didn't want that extra step of creating a separate file that we would have to go and read. So utilizing interactive run lookup, there are customers with a little bit of work on their side creating a plugin. It allows that plugin to find a flat file within the LIMS that we can point to and read directly, rather than having to export a CSV.
It makes it much easier. What is the throughput capacity of the VXL?
And this is always a tricky question. What we showed is just the labeling functionality. And if you're just labeling, the throughput is up to 375 tubes per hour. If you add different functionality, like the weighing, the filling, everything else, it could lower the throughput because there's more functions that are in there. But we're comfortable in saying we can do up to 375 per hour.
Yeah, the labeling. Is the VX suitable for both small and large scale operations?
It is actually. We have multiple customers that are in small, medium, and high throughput operations. And what's helped with that is the modular design. So we can add functionality to the equipment, and we can also, when we have customers that start out, say with their first VXL, but their throughput demands grow as the company grows, people will purchase a second, a third, all the way up to, I think there's a company with 15 redundant systems. So either they're next to each other within the same lab or they're in multiple different labs.
Very good. So, and then what maintenance is required for the VXL?
Very minimal on the user side. So if you are ordering annual preventive maintenance, that does a lot of the heavy labor. But on the user side, there's just a little bit of cleaning to do after, in between, like every 5,000 labels. So every time you're changing out the ribbon that's onto the printer, you're cleaning the print head to try to get smudges away, and you're cleaning some potential residue from the backing of the labels from a couple of rollers. So about 4 to 5 minutes every 5,000 labels.
Sounds good. Are the new features compatible with existing VXL systems, or are they only available in new models?
That's the perfect question, and that's what really sets us apart from a lot of the other systems that are out there. Scinomix is designed, and we have a mantra that all new features that we create within a VX system should be retroactive and retrofittable to machines that are in the field. So it's not only that we can put it on your equipment, but it doesn't require the user to send their equipment back for us to do it here. We will do it on site for you.
And if there are questions and you want to do some additions, just contact your account manager to find out what your options are. And then finally, what size labelables are compatible with the VX system?
So we have compatibility. We want to talk first about the width of the label, so how it wraps around a tube. There is a minimum length of about 0.7 inches to make sure that it sticks on as it goes. And then there is a height requirement or a height limit, and that is a maximum limit just based on the printer head of about 2 inches. So anything within there, we have, I don't even know, 40 something different types of labels already generated. But if you have a specific label dimension that you want, we can have them custom created for you. Good. So that's the FAQs that we get all the time. And I'm going to leave it now to Jason to go through the Q&A session.
Yes, we did get some questions. Thanks everyone for sending your questions. We had a question on, do you have to tell the software where the tubes are on the deck? Meaning, do you have to specify where the different tube types are? It doesn't know on its own. That is correct. So Mark, do you want to?
Yeah. So you set that up one time when you're setting up a run. What you don't do is tell the software where every tube is in the deck. It does some math for you. So you pick the first and the last tube in the first rack. If you're doing multiple different tubes, you're doing the first and the last in each individual rack based on the different tube types when you're doing multiple, and then the last tube in the last rack, and it'll do all the rest of the math for you. And you do that one time. So you set up a run, it takes maybe 10 to 15 minutes, one time, and then you're ready.
So you would need to teach each individual tube type per rack, first and last, and then on the deck, you can use it as a reference point for the other tubes that are on the deck.
Right.
Very good. We have a question here about the wave verification scale. Does it sit on the system? Does it take up deck space?
It does not take up deck space. It's actually behind and the camera's off. So what we called the roller, where the tube was dropped in and the label was applied, there's room in the VXL behind it. So back, like toward the back of the bench or the wall, where the scale actually sits. So it doesn't take up any deck space. And then there's a spot where it drops the tube into the balance, and then it takes it back off.
So there is an area, if you are familiar with the VXL system, there is an area behind the roller box that's an area kind of in front of the printer, and we occupy that spot with the scale. And then we have a question on, does the validation of the barcode in the roller replace the option of a mirror setup to read bottom barcode and side barcode?
It's funny that you say that because that's the option that we've added is the mirror setup. So it's got a mirror now. So it's one barcode reader, and we use the mirror to read the factory barcode on the bottom. And then the way that it's set up, it can also read the side.
Okay, a couple more here. We got a question. Does it have an API? Can it be integrated?
It 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 sort of has an API.
Yeah, it's really more of a uh um what is it?
Remote run
Remote
start.
run start. Thank you very much. Yeah, so it's a remote run start, so you can have calls to get it started with the VXL. It's a little different with this because you'll have to have some room behind it. Uh, if you're going to have an arm come into the back, there could be a deck modification, but our answer to the API for this, a so-called API, would be the remote run start.
And most people, when they ask for an API, they're really looking to start, stop, and then receive messages when the run is over or if it's stopped based on some kind of error. So remote run start handles all of that.
And then our final question is, what other types of tubes are compatible? Snap cap microcentrifuge tubes or 50 mil conical vials?
Both of those actually, with a couple of caveats. The snap cap microcentrifuge tubes, we can handle those. We would need a specialized rack for the tubes so that they're all aligned. So there's notches on the top. So you're putting the hinge part on all the same spot. And then you can grab those tubes from the deck. You cannot bulk feed those. And that's the caveat for the 50 mil conicals as well. You can't bulk feed them, but you can pull them out of the rack, sort of like we did in the demo, and then put them down and apply a label and put them on. So
Yeah, so with those snap cap tubes, the way Mark's talking about describing it, since you grab the tube from the top, there's that back flap tab that we need to know where it is since we grab it in the four corners. And so the modified rack he's talking about positions that to be in a spot where we know it won't hit the gripper. Takes it down to the roller, and then we have a feature in our software called the rollback feature, which will label the tube and then spin it back to its original position so that we know that we can pick them up. So there is a little bit of interaction that you'll have to do to set those up in the rack. And then we can do the 50 mil conical vials. That is our maximum. That is our extreme. So that's up to 33 millimeters. The only caveat with the 50 mil conical is we'll need to change out that clamp roller to be wider for a 50 mil conical. It is simple. It's just the one screw. It comes off for the 50s. You can do them, but there is a little bit of changeover for the 50s. But for all the other tubes, you should be able to use with the same clamp roller.
that all the questions?
That is all the questions I have so far. Thank you everyone for posting those. That was great. Um, yeah, go ahead, Mark.
Funny that we always say this. Uh, when this webinar is over, someone is going to think, oh man, I should have typed in a question to have Mark and Jason answer them live. Always feel free to reach out to us, either if you know your account manager or via sales@scinomix.com or also by the phone, 314-298-9800. Okay, without any further ado, this is sort of the exciting part for us here at Scinomix. We have a brand new piece of equipment that we're going to debut at SLAS in San Diego. When is that? 11 days from now?
And there's 11 days from now.
Like the 27th through the 29th. And it is called the SmartScribe. And the teaser first is going to be a video. I'm going to play the video and just let the music go. And then we'll talk more about what the SmartScribe is going to be after the video is over. So that was a quick teaser video of the SmartScribe. It is a laser etcher. We've had a couple of customers either through regulatory reasons or preference that would prefer not to print and apply a label onto a tube or vial, but to use tubes that are designed to be laser etched into. They have like a sleeve on them. Most of them are black right now. Scinomix has those that we could send to you, but it lasers directly on to the tube on that sleeve. We're super excited about that. We've had many requests over
Super
the last
excited
years
about it.
to have it as another option. So it's another tool in the toolbox for our users. And we know there will be a lot of questions about the SmartScribe. If you want to come and visit us at SLAS in booth 1035.
Yep, 1035.
On the 27th through the 29th. If you won't be able to be there in person, give us a call and we will set up a virtual demonstration of the SmartScribe for you. Good. We've sort of been saying this throughout the entire webinar, but feel free to contact us, right? This isn't the last time you'll be able to talk to us. In fact, it'll make us sad if it is the last time that we talk to you. Contact us either through your account manager, through sales@Scinomix.com, or through the phone, 314-298-9800. So at this point, this is the conclusion of our webinar. We want to thank you guys for taking the time to come down this journey with us where we show the different functionalities.
Please come and see it SLAS. We'll have all of our equipment. Everything will be there, and you'll be able to see the SmartScribe live. Thanks, everyone, for attending. Appreciate it.
Thank you again.